think that's where a lot of people go bad with a pup. They throw them in a pen and just throw feed to them every day. And to me, you got to make a connection with them. Some guys don't agree with me on that, but I think you got to have a good bond with a dog.
It's real simple, I think, with a pup, and a lot of people don't understand it. When a pup is ready to start, it will start. You can't force a pup to start, and you can't force a pup to treat. It has to do it on its own.
So I'm sitting here with Steve Burkholder. You want to introduce yourself, kind of tell you how you're doing?
Yeah. So I'm Steve Burkholder. Actually was originally from northern Indiana for a lot of years, but about 4 years ago we bought a winter home in Florida, Ocala, Florida. So we stayed on there a lot in the winter time, and then try to come up north as much as we can in the summertime. So.
Was it Angola? Is that where you're from?
Angola area. I was actually a member of the DeKalb County Coon Hunters Association for a lot of years, and so it was in the Angola area. Yes.
Yeah, I thought you were about pretty close to where I'm from. You still come up and go hunting?
I do some, but I'm gonna be honest with you. When we moved to Florida, I was there for about a week or two, and I was bored to death and told my wife that this isn't gonna work. We're gonna have to figure something different out. I was ready to go back north. Yeah. Of course, this was we moved there in October. We closed on the home in October. I didn't really get there until right around Christmas. I'd gotten COVID really bad that year, so this was in 21. So I couldn't. I stayed up north for probably a month and a half before I went down there. But was there for about a week and a half, and bored. And she said, "Man, well, find yourself something to do." And she goes, "If you don't like it here after a year, we'll move." Well, I did. I started Googling golf courses and found a golf course out the road and started golfing 4 days a week. And eventually ended up working there in a cart barn, and then kind of moved up and did some, helped them out with their food and non-alcoholic beverages. And then that led into where I actually manage a course, a country club south of Columbus. So it kind of works out perfect because they're not busy in the winter, and I get to come up in the summer and kind of do some of that. So if I find time in between the golf, I hunt some, but not near as much as what I did. I tried hunting in Florida, and it just, when you're spoiled hunting in the people don't realize how good we have it in the Midwest to hunt. And when you hunt in Florida, the hunt is just so different. And I've hunted down there some, but probably won't do a lot of pleasure hunting in Florida. It's probably going to be more up north for sure.
Yeah, just from what I know of those areas, it's hard to even call it pleasure hunting when you're just there's not much of a pleasure.
There's no pleasure in it at all. I figured out there's no pleasure in it at all. Now, I do know there's a few spots down there that's probably, I'm sure, is decent hunting. And I've actually hunted in a few hunts down there with a few guys down there that it wasn't bad. Obviously, we're spoiled, but I mean, you still treat it. Still treat a few coon and could kind of get in and out and stuff like that. But I've also hunted. Especially around the forest and that, and tree a coon 100 yards off the road, and it'd take you 45 minutes to take a machete to cut yourself in, cut a path in, and then also about a half hour to get out. And it was one of them nights where I come home about a year ago, and my wife looked at me and she said, "Must not went that well." And I said, "Well, we treat a couple of coons, but it took us about 3 hours for the two of them to get in there and back." So I said, "I don't know if I'll turn one dog loose again down there," but. There, like I said, there is, that I live about 2 miles from Mike Rainey, and I know a lot of them, their club and stuff, they hunt a lot down there. But in the wintertime, I guess that's kind of my time. I enjoy golfing and that kind of thing. So I do hunt, but probably more so I'll hunt up when I come back up north.
Yeah, I don't blame you one bit.
Absolutely.
When did you start coon hunting?
Well, I tell you, I think I was 7, 8 years old. I was riding my bike home from school. I was born and raised Amish, so went just to a little one-room schoolhouse. I think there was 17, 18 kids in the entire school, 1st to 8th grade. And so we'd ride our bikes back and forth to school, and I was riding my bike home, and we would go right past his place by a guy by the name of Dave Nelson, and he had coon dogs. Didn't really know what they was other than they, howled and stuff, and I thought it was the coolest thing that, them barking. So I was probably 7 years old, 8 years old, and was riding my bike home from school, and he was out front. He hauled cattle, and he was out front. He was home, and I whipped my bike in there and asked him what them dogs was. And he said, them are coon hounds. And we made a small chat, and you have to understand back then, I was just learning the English language because we obviously taught German. And he wanted to know who my dad was, and I told him my dad. And he said, "What's your dad's name?" I said, "Well, it's Dad." I was hanging out right when he called my dad Earl. Kind of a funny story. He said, "I think I know where you belong at." He said, "I'll be down to see your dad, after some time." But anyways, he made good on his promise. It was probably a week or two later. He stopped by there and asked Dad if him and the boys, a few of the boys, be interested in going hunting. And Dad said, "Sure, I'll take them." So I was probably, like I said, around 8 years old, went with him, and went a few times that summer. But by the time I was 10, I was hunting a little bit more. And of course, by the time I was 11, 12 years old, was hunting off of a bicycle. And, of course, back then we grew up, very modern. So, or not modern, but very, we didn't have what they have now. So I spent a lot of nights, hoping the dog would come back on a coat and that kind of thing, for sure.
Do you remember what breed that guy had?
Yeah, I do. He had a, today the reason I have hunted blue ticks primarily all my life is because the two best dogs he had a few walkers. He had a red bone named Jim. Him and his brothers hunted, but he had him and his brother. They had two blue ticks, and they was the best ones that they had at that point. And that's kind of how I fell in love with the blue tick breed. I always thought that them was the best ones out of all breeds because I didn't really know any different. And I primarily hunted with them two dogs for probably, he called one blue, they called the male dog Blue, and he called the little female Ann. And we treed more coon with them dogs than any of the rest of them combined. And then actually later on, he ended up picking up two black and tans. And he called one Blackie and one Blackjack, and but them four is really kind of what solidified. I mean, I got ate up with it, Clayton. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was bad to the point where I was sneaking out of the house on a fire ladder to go hunting, and that worked really good until the wind picked up one night and banged the ladder against the side of the house. And Mom had Dad get up to try to figure out what was going on, and of course, he sees his fire ladder hanging out the window, so he rolls up the fire ladder and closes the window. And you have to understand, I grew up in a home where we never locked the doors when we left, but they was locked that night when I got home. So I slept in the haymow that night for sure.
There's a lot worse things you could be doing, sneaking out of the house, though.
Yeah. Well, we that's for sure. I enjoyed it. I didn't compete or anything like that until obviously later years, but. Certainly enjoyed that part of my youth as far as the hunting goes.
When you got older and started hunting more on your own, did you have blue ticks?
Yeah, I've had blue ticks primarily, and I've tried other breeds. When I was younger, I tried other breeds, but never. The first dog I ever got, I was probably 11 or so, whatever. She was a half coonhound, half beagle. Wouldn't leave your feet, she wouldn't. And then I got a couple pups and laid a drag. And never forget, tried to lay a drag with a gunny sack, coon in a gunny sack. And me and my brother both got bit over that deal. And, it's a lot of good memories. But we had I think we had a couple Walker pups, English pup or whatever. But got a blue tick or two. And they tree coons, but they nothing. Never really had nothing up until I was about 17. Moved to Indiana when I was 17. And that's kind of really when I started being able to, started hunting a little bit more, getting around dogs of better caliber, I guess you could say.
So when did you start competition hunting then? Was it when you're older or when you're 17 like you're talking about now? Or?
Well, I would have been, so when I was 17, when I moved to Angola, I was attending a church called Hicksville Mennonite Church. Yeah. And there was a guy there, his name was Eldon Delagrange. And he coon hunted, and he would hunt a competition hunt maybe once or twice a year. But anyways, I went to his place. He figured out I liked to hunt. I went to his place, and we got to going back and forth. and he was getting a magazine then called the Coonhound Bloodlines, and I would leaf through that Coonhound Bloodlines, and of course I couldn't wait. I didn't subscribe to Coonhound Bloodlines until later years, but every time he got the book, he would read it for a week or so, and then he would give it to me at church, and I would read it that following week and then give it back to him. And I would be leafing through there, and I'd see all these ads and stuff, and this was back when the Jet line was going on. And they had this is back when they had Jet 5 and TNT and Curly and all these dogs, and they was winning a bunch. And so my actual first stint in Blue Ticks was I actually went up to Ed Mead's and picked up a pair of pups and brought them back, and that's kind of how I started. Neither one of them went on. I mean, they tree coons and stuff. Actually, the one I ended up losing, and the deal was I had to give Ed one back. I was going to start both of them. I got them as little puppies to start both of them, and I didn't have enough money to buy a tracking collar or anything like that. But when they was 9-10 months old, one of them I was hunting them and never got treed, and I couldn't find him. Never did find him. And so I rode back up to Ed's with that other pup, and I told him what happened. And so he took that pup back. It was running a tree and two, doing a good job. And he gave me a different dog, and that dog wasn't no count. And so he'd tree coons, but he wasn't what I was looking for. And then I actually got hooked up with Mackie Mans, who's hunted Blue Ticks. And Mackie had a dog at the time called Still Driving Dan. And he had a friend of his that had a dog called Fred, and this guy was looking for somebody to hunt Fred. So I started hunting Fred for this guy, and started hunting with Mackie many nights. I mean, really and truly, Mackie Mans is really the one that introduced me to competition hunting. Rode to many hunts with him. And he was just a great friend for a lot of years. So that's kind of how I got started kind of in the competition. And I would have probably been 18. I had a little female I competed with a lot of. Her name was Lady. I think it was 7, or Mackie could probably even tell you better than me, but I put 7 or 8 second place wins on her, never could get that first. That was back when you had to have a first place win. Yeah. And then hunted Freddie in some hunts, and then but then it was through that process. It was one of Mackie's friends that had a female called Beth. That was I drew her out one night. She was 13, 14 months old, and she looked outstanding. And I didn't have a lot of money, but I wanted to buy this female, and he wasn't going to sell. Well, Doug, the guy that owned her's name was Doug, and he ended up going through a divorce, and so he wanted to sell a dog box, the whole works. And so I ended up buying her off of him, give him half the money, took everything, give him half the money, and then when I come up with the other half the money, give him that, and he ended up giving me the papers. But she was my first female, that really good one. I made her a Grand Night champion, and which for me was a huge deal back then, And but it was through her, when out of her first litter, that's where I raised the Droop Junior dog that we ended up, that really kind of, Junior put me on the map. I didn't put Junior on the map. He was just that caliber of hound. So that's kind of how it all started.
You want to tell us a little bit about that dog?
Well, Junior was it was kind of absolutely. So I raised him. I whelped him at the house and raised him, and he was probably, I don't know, he was probably 6, 7 months old, something like that, 8 months old. And at the time, Paul Taylor had just sold Swamp Rooster. Mm-hmm. And so we had contacted Paul and about hunting starting a young dog for us, because we was hunting, I was in with Mike and Jerry McAvoy, and they had a dog called Droop that was a half brother to Beth. It's kind of how I got to know these guys. We met each other in Ashland spring hunt, when they have the spring hunt over there every year. And we bred the Droop to Beth, which was a half brother, half sister cross, and that's where Junior come out of. And we ended up giving him we ended up taking him to Paul Taylor's. He'd sold Swamp Rooster, and he was hunting dogs by the month. Mm-hmm. And I knew Paul well enough to know that if he's not calling you, he's probably liking what he's hunting. And I didn't get a call for like 3 weeks, and I called Paul up, and I said, hey, you think it's worth to put another month on him? And he said, yeah. He goes, and back then Paul only charged, I think it was $200, $100 a month, maybe $250, something like that. So I sent him another $250, and we get around to the second month, and I still don't hear nothing from him. And I call him up, and he said, hey, he goes, I'm kind of in the market for a dog. Why don't you just sell me this dog? Well, I got news for you. I may have been born, I wasn't born last night.
Yeah.
I called Jerry and Mike up, and I said, this dog, his pup must be something, because he's wanting to buy him. Anyways, we rode up there, and I called Paul back, and I said, we're not going to sell him. He said, if I was you, I wouldn't either. He goes, you need to hunt with him. This one's going to be a special one. So he already knew then. Anyways, we got him, brought him back, and Mike and Jerry took him down there. And you know how some dogs just go through a sophomore blues, I guess you could say. Yeah. And he was going through one of them, and they decided they wanted to sell him. And, of course, I don't know what I was hunting at the time, but we had a bunch of dogs at the time. And so we actually sold him to a kid, believe it or not. And this kid never paid for the dog, so Jerry went and picked him back up. And we was coming home from a big hunt. I don't know, Winter Classic or something like that. I can't remember what hunt exactly. It was in the springtime. And Jerry said, what am I going to do with this dog? And because he was over Bill LaRoche's. And we'd already drove past Bill LaRoche's. And we was probably 3 or 4 miles from his driveway. And I said, turn around and go get that pup. I'll take him home with me. And so we turned around, went back, got him, and took him home with me. And I had him at my house for about a week, hadn't turned him loose. I come home from church on a Sunday night, and I hear his dog treating this next section over, right in these people's backyard. And I'm like, that's kind of strange why somebody would be hunting. This woods ain't 3 acres big,
Yeah.
House sitting right in the middle of it. For whatever reason, the last minute, I went down to the kennel to make sure it wasn't none of mine, and lo and behold, Junior was gone. We called him Crook then. And I flew over there, and these older couples sitting on their back porch. And I said, man, I'm sorry, I think it's my dog. And they said, oh, yeah, he's been there for an hour or so. And he said, hey, by the way, he said, if he's got one of them critters, he said, we've been trying to catch him. I'm trying to get rid of them things or whatever. So I said, it's safe to say I can whack this one, you know what I mean? So anyways, I went in there and got him that night and started hunting the next night. And hunted him about 2 or 3 times that first week. But from that point, I hunted him 188 out of 192 nights. And he just kept progressing each night. And, by that time, we decided after that year, he was a night champion, made him a night champion that fall. And I got him qualified for the world, and then decided the following year, he was a 3-year-old. I believe he was a 3-year-old. And decided to run him in the Prina race. So then ran him in the Prina race in 99 and 2000. He won the Prina race overall. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time was only the second dog to ever do it. Hardwood Dan was the first one. So that was a pretty major accomplishment. Yeah. And that was back when the Prina race, it was tough to win. I mean, that was a tough race to win. And it was the toughest race to win in my opinion in that era, Mm-hmm. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, he was good to me for a lot of years. Yeah. He'll always be special to me because of, just he was the first good one I had, and he really kind of put me on the map, mm-hmm. As per to say. So
where did you go from there?
Well, here's the unfortunate part. Clayton, when you hunt a really good one, you got your expectations high, so you spend years trying to replace that dog. So I had 3 or 4 grand nights out of Junior that I hunted, made grand night or whatever, and I actually went through probably a dozen of them. And I had a little female out of him called Gypsy Lady that actually won. I think she won the PKC state race in Michigan. Actually got in the top 19 of the PKC World. Won blue tick days, made the finals of the world UKC World Hunt, different years and stuff. Really good jip, but she was. So I had a few of them along the way, but I just my heart's always been in hunting good blue ticks, and I just couldn't never find the blue tick that I wanted, and actually had a stint there where I actually hunted walker dogs for a while. Yep. And that was a total fluke thing. I had Shane called me and said he had. This boy had this really good walker jip, and he'd fell on hard times, and he was wanting $3,500 for her because he logs, and the logging business was down. And he said, if we don't like her in 3 or 4 months, the boy will buy her back. So we ended up buying that little female, and I had her until she died. She was my Abigail female. She's the first dog I ever made a platinum champion. So I had a stint there where I hunted some walker dogs, trying to find the right blue dog. So. Absolutely.
When did you get back the blue dogs?
Well, actually, the next one that I campaigned after that on a bigger level is a dog called Big Country. And that was just totally an absolute fluke thing. My wife was on me. She's wanting me to get back into hunting a blue tick. And I said, honey, they don't make them. They're just not out there. Yeah. And she goes, well, I think you'd really enjoy it, And so she would flip through Facebook and look at ads, and go to the Coonhound forum and stuff. And she'd be like, what do you think about one like this? And I said, nah, we'd be laying in bed. I'm like, nah, I ain't buying it junk, That's just where it was at. And she asked me about a cross one night. And the cross actually ended up being out of, I think it was out of Country's first litter, I believe. He may have had one. Yeah, I think it was out of his first litter. Maybe his second. But anyways, he was, she showed me this cross, and I looked at the pedigree, and I said, now, if I was to hunt a blue tick, I'd want one bred up like that. Well, she went behind my back the next day and booked 2 pups out of that cross. And when it come time to pick these pups up, she goes, hey, I got to have you go down and meet this guy. He wants to meet you north of Indy to pick these pups up. I said, what are you talking about? She goes, well, I got you and my buddy Jason. She goes, I got you a pair of pups. And I'm like, Kim, I'm not no pup trainer. You know that. She goes, I'll train it. And of course, Kim has hunted for a lot of years. And anyway, so I said, well, who's got it? And she said, Chris Paul. I said, Chris Paul, a DNR officer? And she goes, yeah. She goes, yeah. I said, he's got these pups? And she goes, yeah. I said, I know Chris. So anyways, I got a hold of Chris, and he was laughing about it. And so anyways, we agreed to meet north of Indy at Gander Mountain, or not Cabela's. Mm-hmm. And so we met there, and he's got these 2 puppies out running around on the driveway and stuff, and in the parking lot there. And we just get talking, and he said, what are you hunting now? And I said, well, right now I'd love to hunt something tree a coon. And we got to making small talk, and he said, you hunting any blue dogs? And I said, nah, I can't find a good one. He said, I know where there's one at. And I said, don't tell me, give me one of these stories. It's one that's tied out behind a barn door and that kind of thing. And he said, no, these pups is dead. And I said, oh, really? He said, I'm just telling you. He goes, he's the right kind. He said Donnie Walston, who trained him and had him, said he's more of a pleasure hunter than he's a competition hunter. And we've took him as far as we're going to take him, but if he got in the right person's hands, the dog could win. I said, Chris, I've heard that so many times. It's, write a book on that. Yeah. I think we could, what I mean? So he said, well, you just come down and hunt for him with yourself and see for yourself. So we did. I about 3 or 4 weeks, probably 2-3 weeks later, it's in February. Now, it's cold in Indiana in February. Yeah. No leaves, snow, and so I called him up and said, I'm coming. He's got a little cabin down there. And so anyways, I loaded up, went down there, and went hunting with him 2 nights. And I told my wife after the first night, if he looks anything like he did the next night, I said, I know he made a lot of mistakes and stuff because he was green, I mean, not green. He hadn't been hunted much. Mm-hmm. And so I took, and the next night he looked all right, obviously again, he just hadn't been hunted much, but man, that dog had a motor on him, Clayton, out of this world. I had not seen a blue dog up to this point move around like this one did. Mm-hmm. And he had $1 million locate, and he was an absolute, just a clean tree dog, and just did some ignorant things, but they all do.
As I say, they all do.
So we just started talking, and we struck a deal. We struck a deal that night, and the deal was I would take him home, and the only way the deal would go through is I wanted to hunt him a month or 2 to really make sure that's what I wanted to hunt. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Clayton, I took him home. This dog has, today, before this dog and since, and I've never had a dog that had that kind of a motor on him. I would run him on a treadmill. I would run him 14 miles in the morning and 14 miles at night. And his natural gait was at 7.1 mile an hour. And I would run him for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night. And I would bring him off that treadmill at nighttime, and he'd be spinning circles. I mean, raring to go. Mm-hmm. Jerking at the end of the lead strap and stuff. And I told my wife, I said, if we can ever generate that kind of energy in the right thing, to get the right process out in the timber, we're going to have something. And started hunting him. And he was wild. I'm telling you, Clayton, he was wild. I would turn him through a section. He'd blow through there. I would park on the other end and grab a hold of him, send him right back through the section he'd come from, and he just the way he was, you know. And back that was in February, latter part of February. So coons ain't moving a lot of nights, you know, and get on the road, run down the road, and just dumb stuff. But we finally got all that generated into the right direction and started getting better and better. And started hunting in some casts. The first 8 casts I hunted him in, he lost. And but I could see us gaining ground, and he won his first cast. I think it was April 26th or 27th, and of that then. And we turned right around in the month of May. He won in PKC, won Dog of the Month, and then turned around in August and he wins Dog of the Month again. So that just tells you, it just was on from that point. And he was, to date, probably he was. That dog was a lot of fun to hunt. Yeah. And I hunted him for a couple of years, and then Ash Oxendine bought him. And I hunted him for about 3 or 4 months, and then John Strickland wanted to partner up with Ashley on him and bought half of Ashley out on him, and then he started hunting him. So, and I'm glad that he did. The dog's going to leave his mark. Already has. Yeah. Already is, you know. Not just on what he did, but what dogs out of him are doing. Yeah. So he was enjoyable to hunt. I really liked him. Today, I would say that he was probably the closest thing that I've hunted. Junior was good to me, but I would have to say that Country was probably, if I was to draw one up in my mind the way I would want him, he had some holes in him that I would obviously change. They all do. But if I could hunt a Country the rest of my life, I'd be completely satisfied. Yeah. So,
what are some of the best memories or the things that make you say that? Like, what separates him from?
Well, one of the big things is that Country taught me is he would hunt. It's crazy to say this, but he would hunt. There were several things. Garmin trackers, I'm sure there was dogs like this in the past, but Garmin's really educates a guy on a dog. Yeah. He would hunt every season different, first off. Mm-hmm. So in the wintertime, I could never get him to run an edge. Mm-hmm. He would be in the timber somewhere. He had what I call coon smarts. Yeah. He would be in the timber somewhere because he knew that's where he was going to tree a coon at. In the summertime, I could never get him to hunt in the woods. He was on the edges all the time, and he would do everything he could to get around the outside edges. And he was awesome in a bean field where a lot of dogs would struggle. Mm-hmm. But if he did struggle, I was just telling some guys tonight, if he did struggle, he would struggle in a cornfield more than he ever did in a bean field, which was crazy, but it's just the way it was. And so that was one thing. And up until him, I always felt like if you was in a cast and you guys only scored on one coon and that dog, whoever treated that coon, won the cast, that it was just the breaks. But when you're the dog that 7 out of every 10 times is that lucky dog that trees that one coon, you change your theory on dogs going where their coons are at. Yeah. Just kind of knowing. I mean, I don't know if their nose is that good, or if they're just obviously their intelligence is just above that. You know what I mean? So we won a lot of casts. We won a lot of casts, and to date, what's crazy. The other thing about him, in all the times I ever hunted him, there's only one cast that I won without plus points. And for as much as he was hunted and that kind of thing, that was pretty outstanding. So that's just kind of what made him, it just kind of made him different. And the other thing is, he would mark coons when he hunted. People didn't really believe me when I would tell him this, but I would show him. I was up hunting with Ben Crocker one night. He did it where he was running a coon. I was come across another one. Treat that one. I literally walked him 250 yards one direction, dead away from him, and I showed him on the Garmin and cut him loose. He makes a big loop and goes right back there where I showed him at the Garmin, strikes right there and just trails in there about 50 yards and trees the second one. And in all actuality, Clayton, the year that I got in the final 3 with him at the CHKC World, that year there, that was the year that he made that he got in the top 8 or more of all 3 world hunts that year. I was beat. I had drew Bobby Burton out, or Sean, I think it was Zach. Zach was hunting Topper. I don't remember the other 2 dogs in the cast, but we was hunting in the cast to get us to the final 3 of the CHKC World. And them dogs that smoked the red hot track in there and put it in the ground. He would get squirrely in the ground. And I didn't want to tree him. I was only struck for a quarter. I didn't want to tree him. Jealous tree, next tree over by the hole. Another dog blew out of there, and Country wouldn't stay on the ground. He couldn't handle him out of the ground. Well, I mean, I don't care if he was looking at a coon. You wasn't going to handle him out of the ground.
No.
I don't tree him because I just know I didn't want to pull minus.
Right.
Anyways, we get in there, and Topper is treed on a tree that's empty right next door, or right beside this hole. And he's in the ground, and we score that tree and turn him back loose, and what's he do? Leaves the ground and comes up by us. So he gets pulled. He pulls 25 minus.
Yeah.
And he blows out of there, and his other females has done nothing, but she struck for 50. She trees for 100 and has a coon. So we're in a bad way right out of the gate. And anyways, Topper gets treed through there, has a coon. So he takes quarter and 100, gets treed and has another coon. And Country had blowed out, and when we were walking to his second coon, I can hear Country treating behind him. So I struck and treed him. Now, in the meantime, this other female that was struck for 50 and 100 had been treated the whole time. And never could put the stationary on her because we was wanting dogs treed. But when we got to Topper's second coon, and now we got to walk another 500 yards in the Country, we're out of hearing from this female. And anyways, we get the Country. I'll never forget it. We get the Country. He's got a coon. He's treed behind a trailer park. So he's got a trash can coon pretty much in a nutshell. And I pull him off of there. And now we got to walk back to where the last time we heard this female, because she's the only thing struck. Well, they ain't 6 minutes left to go on the hunt. We walk out to the paved road. When we get on the paved road, Zach asked the judge, he said, "Hey, can I stop and listen?" Just for a brief second. Judge said, "Sure." When he stops and listens, you can hear Topper treat way through there. That was a good dog, too. And he struck and treated him, and I cut. And when I cut loose, now the guy with the female, now he's going to get beat if Topper has a coon. So he's wanting to hustle back to try to get back into hearing. We're too far away. But Country ran right down the middle of that blacktop road, spun around, come right back between us, and is gone. In about 2 minutes, he's back treed in that same exact area where he'd treed that coon at, with a minute and a half left to go on the hunt. And I struck and treed him. And we walk in there, and he has treed one tree, one tree over, and it's about 20 yards from that where he had treed that coon. He rolls up and trees that other coon. He knew that other coon was there the whole time. But that's what separated him. He did stuff like that numerous times, So he was just one of them that, he was just very coon smart. Yeah. So.
It's interesting you say that, because the blue dog that I have, he's a grand pup out of Big Country. He's out of Country Club. And that's one thing I've noticed with him. There are times he makes a tree where I think the other dog just ran right by there. He's maybe 50 or 60 yards away, and he might not even open on track. He'll just locate and tree. Like, is he just jealous treeing it and going there? There'll be a coon laid up there. Yeah. Like, and then it's weird. Like, most other dogs, you might cut them loose, and they'll go straight and kind of hunt the woods. There's times where he'll go, and then he'll, like you said, he might just make a quick left. It's like he just knows it's there. So it's probably, like you're saying, it's brains, and it's weird how some dogs just always seem to have that ability to put themselves where the coon live.
Yeah, it's just they just have that. I don't know. They have that. They just have that coon sense. I call it. So. He was definitely one, and we're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing a lot of that out of his pups. So, for sure.
I'm happy with that one I have. And kind of like what you said, Dad had blue ticks growing up, and the last blue tick that I remember him having was out of Jet 5. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we coon hunted him and squirrel hunted him both when I was a kid. We'd coon hunt at night, squirrel hunt him in the daytime. That had I couldn't tell you how much fun we had with that dog. And then after that, we, kind of like you said, we couldn't find one that suited what we were really looking for. Oh, yeah. And Dad is the same. I don't care what color it is. I want it to look good. I want it to be built like a hound and have a good mouth. But the breed don't. I favor the looks of a blue tick, but if it hunts the way I want it to, that's what matters to me. And I just never came across something that I really liked as far as getting a pup. Or I always wanted another one, but I just like you said, it was like impossible to find there for a while. And then I went hunting with Matt Lingo and Terry Tappy, and I really liked the way their dog hunted and sounded. and they were going to breed it. And I thought, well, that's the best thing I've seen in years as far as a blue dog. And I knew he was out of big country, so I know he had success on his own, and he's bred well.
Right.
And I've been nothing but happy with that dog. But so how long did you have country then? Just
Well, I would have hunted country for right at about 2 years, 2.5 years. Actually, probably close to. See, he was 4 when I got him, and he was 6 when John started hunting him. So I would have hunted him just a little over 2 years.
And
just over 2 years.
It seems like, was he pretty consistent over like the course of his life? Because it seems like at least from my memory, what I've heard about him, that he was pretty consistent overall. He was
one of the few dogs that I've had, and I've seen him. I've seen other dogs that have been able to do this, but he was one of the few that could string together. Him and Junior are the only two that I've ever had that was able to string together multiple cast wins over an extended period of time. I did it with Junior one time. He had 15 straight cast wins, and I did it with Country one time. I hunted 17 casts, never lost a cast with him. In 17 casts, So, and I don't care if that's a little hour hunt that you're hunting. Them hour PKC hunts can be tough to win.
Yeah.
I remember in that streak, when I was on that streak with him, we was hunting a cast one night out of DeKalb, and I drew my buddy Smokey out, Carlisle Miller, and he was hunting a little female. They had a lot of success with, I think her name was Crazy, when Crazy was young, and we scored on 7 coon in an hour hunt.
Jeez.
And it was a shootout. We treed the first one together right out of the truck, and then after that it was just, one dog treed. I think, I know I treed 3 more after that. No, we would have scored on 8 because I treed 3, Crazy treed 3, and another dog treed 1. And the only thing that separated, I won by a quarter, and that was simply because of the strike points off that first drop.
Jeez.
So
yeah.
And that was during that streak. But yeah, it's just he could string together. He was consistent. He could string together cast wins.
Is there anything you had to work on him over the years?
Yeah, you don't. I always share with people. People say, well, they're just natural. There's a lot of them that are natural, but they're natural. You got to hunt them certain ways to really get the best out of them. So he was certainly one that Country would try you. And different, he was your biggest buddy, and he really kind of was a pain in and around the house, because I would get up in the morning at 5:30 if he knew I was up, and he was kenneled out where he could not see me. He'd sit out there and whine. Same thing at nighttime, whine until I went out and fed him, or not even feeding, but just let him know that I was there. Yeah. He was completely fine. If you tied him out to where he could see you, it was like he calmed down. It's just the type of dog that he was. Very, very personal dog. But
that is unbelievable you say that, because the pup that I have does the exact same thing.
And it's
he can be in our dining room in a crate, and I can be in the living room. And if I'm on the opposite end of the couch where he can't see me, he will whine and whine. Yeah. If I just poke my head around the corner, he's
fine.
Good.
I know.
That is crazy you say that.
It's just, them dogs are just very, very personal. I mean, and so with him, I could do, once we got through the stage where he trusted me and I trusted him, I remember the PKC hunt. I'll never forget it. I drew Brandon Cosman out, and he would go back to the tree every now and then. Nothing bad, but I mean, Donnie pleasure hunted him most of the time. He'd go in a tree, a coon, tame another, drop and stuff. And I got on him that night pretty hard, and of course I was out of the hunt by then, but continued to hunt in that cast. I just wasn't a part of it. But he went on to tree 3 coons in probably in 40 minutes,
Yeah.
Couldn't win the cast because obviously it was out of it. But
right.
But it was like everything clicked that night.
Yeah.
But up until then, we had we had a lot of come to Jesus meetings, and he got a lot of text messages sent his way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear that, because just thinking of my blue dog, and he is a pup still, and he thinks he's a puppy the way, like, around the house and with the kids and stuff. You have to be careful, because he's probably 75. I mean, he's a giant dog.
Oh yeah.
But he thinks he needs to run around, jump. I mean, he's wild.
Oh yeah.
But he is great with the kids. He lets my son and daughters just lay and play with them. He's special, because typically if you got one that is wild and hunts and stuff, they don't necessarily want to sit around with kids and stuff.
No.
But it's got to just be brains. It's just got to be smart.
Well, I think it's what's bred into him. I think it's the personality, that kind of thing. And you know, he also he was the other thing too with country is, as I started getting more in rhythm with him, he would look, it was crazy, but he would look better as the night went on. Mm-hmm. The later you hunted him, the more he got into the nighttime, more he got into the morning, stuff like that, the better he would look. He was just one of them dogs. He just, you know, if I could get through that first round, I mean, I never feared a second round. You know, he was just, you know, now my Abigail female, she could look really good in the early round, but now I struggle with her in the late round. Yeah. She was just the way her style, you know, just jammed them coon up. She looked really good when the coons was on the ground. Country could beat you on trailing them coons up and treeing them, and he could beat you in a coon treeing contest. Yeah. I remember when John first got him, he took him to a big Honda Pro Classic, and them boys told him that the only way you're going to beat him is you're going to have to put him where there's coons at. And he goes out and trees, scores on 5, and one of the other dogs treed 2 and stuff. And them guys come back in and said, you couldn't tell me that farther from the truth on this dog or whatever. So the next night they put him where he had to go hunt a coon. He trees the only 3 they look at. You know, and these are dogs that have won thousands of dollars, you know. So he was just that style of hound. Yeah. For sure.
I wish there was more blue dogs like that, but it makes them more special when you get
it is, but and I think as a whole the blue tick breed is starting to, you know, obviously I've shared this many times, I had no part in Country's breeding, but I know a lot of the guys that was in behind his breeding, and it's not an accident. He is what he is. I mean, there's a lot of good dogs behind him. And you know, his dad in my opinion, the Bo Cephas dog in my opinion is one of the best reproducers of all time as far as reproducing dogs that could compete on the big stage. There was a lot of really good blue ticks. I'm just being real here. Yeah. There was a lot of good blue ticks that was good stud dogs that produced dogs that could win. But there was very few of them dogs that could win a lot that could really compete on the big stage against the best of the best. Right. And we might as well face the giant in the room. 80% of our winners today are walkers and still are. Yeah. You know, and so, you know, he was, you know, his dad was, you know, in my opinion, his dad was one that could reproduce quite a few dogs that could compete on the big stage.
So once John and Ashley, he transitioned there, where did you go from that point?
Well, I had my eye on so I had raised another litter of pups. Actually, kind of got keen on the crossbreeding. It wasn't very popular then. Still is not by a lot of standards or whatever. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a believer in crossbreeding, and I'll tell you the reason why. I think today, the reason that we have a lot of these genetic issues that we have is simply because we bred these dogs too tight. You can only go back to the well so many times and not have health issues. I mean, people nowadays, when they get a dog, hold their breath and just try to get 3 years out of them because they know they're either going to be a thyroid dog or they're going to end up having, you know, whatever it may be. Yeah. And so our friend Jerry Mole had a female that he wanted to breed back to his socket semen, but he wanted to live breed her before and called up Chris and asked him if, you know, we would consider breeding Country to her. And I was all over that because I knew Jerry's breeding program for years. He's had some really nice dogs. And so we bred his cis female to Country. And she raised, I think, 7 or 8 pups. And I advertised them because Jerry didn't want anything to do with them. He just wanted to get a litter of pups on the ground so he could AI her. Anyways, there was a friend of mine. I didn't know him at the time, but his name was Ron Chapman. He wanted to take and he wanted to buy 3 of these pups because his grandsons was getting out of the military, and he wanted to buy him each pup. Anyways, he buys these 3 pups, and so when I sold Country, these pups was about 11 months old, and I went down and hunted with him because he was telling me how good they was. And that's the night I hunted with Babe and her littermate's sister, drawing a blank now, but anyways, she come up missing in Arkansas. But anyways, I hunted Babe. That's when I went down and got her. She was, I think she would have been she was 11, 12 months old or whatever when I brought her back up. Or no, she probably was 13, 14, probably 13 months old. But anyways, that's where I went. I hunted her for a couple of years. Did really well with her, won a lot with her. And she come down with some kind of a skin disease, and we could never get it cured. And so, but that was really the last good one. I got currently I just have a female off of Country and Ruby. Yeah. Just a dog that trees coon. She's nothing really kind of perfect for what I need at this stage in my life, honestly.
Yeah, just something to have fun with.
Just something to have fun with and go hunting with, tree a coon here and there. And you know, I'm not saying I won't get back into competition hunts, but I enjoy golf. You know, I've hunted, Clayton, I've hunted all my life hard from the time I was 17. Competed on kind of the big level, I guess you could say, for 30 years. And I think when I turned 50, you know, I just decided that I wanted to do other things in life. I mean, I still love hunting. But I don't think well, you know, for now and where I'm at in life that I'm going to really compete that much. I have just as much fun pleasure hunting as I have had competition hunting anyways. Yeah.
So I guess moving forward, how did you get involved with the Tournament of Champions?
Well, that's a good question, Clayton. Honestly, the Tournament of Champions really kind of it was sparked several years ago. Me and Alan actually, kind of ironically, a year or two before we moved to Florida, he called me up and wanted me to golf in a league with him, and I agreed to it. And it was when we was golfing in that league that we started. Kind of coming up with this hunt format. And he had talked to some guys, and they give him some really good information. And Alan's probably going to kill me for saying this, but he said, I'm going to take a big swing, because that was back when UKC needed a boost. I mean, the hunts was just what it was. It didn't really have a place to hunt your grand nights and stuff. And he said, he goes, I guess I'm either going to, we're either going to take a big swing at this, or I'll go up and smoke, you know. And that's kind of how the format, we started talking about the format. And we just felt that a format of this nature would go, and we wanted to come up with a hunt that would support the local clubs, where you'd still draw the entrance at the local club level, but it would give an average guy that didn't have the funds or the money or couldn't get away from home or a job or whatever that could compete for that big prize money, you know, with a low entry, and that's kind of how the Tournament of Champions was. That's what the principles it was kind of based upon, is that. And I think they've done, and of course I've shared some on a lot of different things, but I think the people that have really cared about improving the hunts or improving that culture as a whole, they've done a wonderful job on what the TOC is built into and what it is today. It's really incredible, the prestige that the TOC holds. It really is, you know. Yeah,
I agree with you, because like I was talking earlier on the other podcast, just the fact that you can just win your cast and move on and have it being a tournament, and this year there's over 1,400 dogs qualified for it. Like, I don't care what anyone says, and winning money is great. I'm sure no one would be mad about winning the money they're giving away at this hunt, but just for me, what brings the most prestige is knowing that you competed against all those people for however long this whole process has been, and then you make it and win. Like, because there's other hunts where there's a lot less people and people hold them in high respect and stuff, but in my opinion, if you win this hunt, this is probably the biggest hunt you could win. To me, it's like a world hunt.
In my opinion, it's the most prestigious title to win right now. That doesn't have a world hunt dubbed in front of it. Yeah. And I'm not so sure it doesn't rival with a lot of the world hunts. I think if you ask people, if you held a gun to a person's head and said, "What's the hunt you got to name one?" I'm gonna say for those that have been here, 9 out of 10 times are gonna tell you this is the hunt they want to win. Yeah. And so, you know, with that being said, the Tournament of Champions, what sets this hunt apart from everything else is anybody can compete in this hunt. You know, the old adage of, well, you know, if I had deep pockets like them, I could win like they do. Well, it cost you $100 getting this hunt. Yeah. For a chance to win $50,000. That will never happen in our lifetime again. I'm just telling you. Yeah. That's just how big this hunt is. And it, you know, and then the fact that you have to move through 1,400 to get to here, or to get to the TOC finals, and then there's 96 there. Mm-hmm. It's a heck of an accomplishment. And what's even bigger, so to break it even down farther on the TOC, is you spend $100, and when you show up at the finals at 96, the worst you're going to do is $1,000.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's incredible. You know what I mean? For $100 bet. So it truly gives everyone an opportunity to win a big hunt.
Yeah.
And I really think that's what sets it apart from anything else I've been to. And then, of course, the venue, Clayton.
Oh, I know.
Anybody that's never been to Three Fat Labs in Greencastle and been a part of that venue and walking down that sidewalk. I remember the very first year before I started color commentating and analyzing that hunt. I remember I had Babe and I got in the top 16. That was when 64 come. And I got in the top 16, and just walking down that sidewalk that first night on Winning Your Cast was special.
Yeah.
It's very special, for sure.
Yeah. I can't even think of another event as far as venue-wise it's even close to this, really, especially nowadays. And like you said earlier, to even qualify to get in here, what's nice about it is it supports the local clubs. You have to get 5 cast wins to qualify for it. So it's not just like, oh, everyone's leaving their local club to come here and hunt. No, it's great as far as keeping the local clubs alive and keeping that, because that's important. Like if we want to continue to do this, we have to have local clubs.
100%.
We have to have guides, judges, all that stuff. So to me, there's not really any downside of it, because the clubs win, and if you want to compete in a competition coon hunt, that's like you said, $100, you can win 50 grand. You make it to the finals. Yeah, you're coming out.
It's amazing.
It's
amazing. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy to think that like it's coon hunting.
Yeah. Well, I hope as long as the Tournament Champions going on, for those that are listening to this podcast, and if you are a hunter and are contemplating about going and trying to get qualified for it, it'd be worth your time. It'd be worth your time to try to get through and just come here and experience it. Because those that have, it's their number one hunt they want to get back to. So it's definitely an incredible venue, and I really think that it's serving its purpose, what was started out as, and it's kind of rewarding to see that coming to fruition. We also talked about taking it live back then, and that was before any of the rest of the stuff that come with it. So to be able to do live coverage on it and stuff, it's really pretty awesome.
Yeah. And as far as live coverage goes, that is one thing with like it's near impossible to do, because if you've ever been out in the woods, there's not Wi-Fi in the woods,
and most of the time where your best hunting is at,
water.
Well, they don't have signal,
right? Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So.
Yeah. So it's getting now technology-wise where you can actually get decent camera, not just a cell phone. You get a decent camera crew out there, and I think every year that they've done it, the broadcast itself is getting better. And obviously this is all new. No one else has done anything like this as far as an event this big with this tournament style and the live presentation, the professionality of it. There's nothing even close to it.
The production company that they have that's helping us with this is incredible. They do an outstanding job, and I don't think the average person really knows. You obviously probably know a little bit, Clayton, because you are do this, the podcasting and stuff. The work that goes behind to make all this come together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and as far as producing entertainment, like it's not like we're in a stadium. Like you have to go out in the middle of the woods with the camera
right, exactly.
and then send all that information back to you guys in the studio. And I think it's amazing the progress that's already been made in these few years. I can't imagine in 10 years from now what it's going to be like.
I think 3 years from now it's going to be incredible. Yeah. But you're right, 100% right for sure.
Because everything about it is getting better, because like I said, this is all new. Like no one has done this for coon, really, other than maybe like fishing tournaments. They kind of you can see that on TV, and they kind of like as far as like hunting, like there's nothing really live where you can. It's like a live sports event. That's like watching the Super Bowl.
Right. Oh yeah.
But it's
sure.
it'll be really interesting to see where this goes in the next few years, because the technology obviously is going to get better as far as the broadcasting, and everyone involved is going to be more experienced. And I'm really glad that I get to be a part of it and experience it, because like you were saying earlier, just seeing the venue and the sidewalk out there and the lights and the flags and everything.
And just watching it evolve, as it grows from year to year, for sure.
Yeah. So today's Thursday. The broadcast starts tomorrow, right? Friday?
Yeah, Friday night, yep. We go live Friday night from probably midnight to about 3 o'clock. And so what we'll be doing is we'll be kind of recapping on Thursday night's hunt on the dogs that advanced, and then also segue into that from what they're doing on Friday night and their matchups and that kind of thing. And then we'll also be covering the heads-up round, and then obviously broadcast the final round. So looking very forward to it. Got an amazing crew I work with, Jamie Eastat and Rick Stretch, both do an incredible job, very knowledgeable about hounds and stuff. So always look forward to that. It's twice a year. We do it here at the TOC, and then I'll also do it at the World, and definitely enjoy both venues. It just kind of gives you an inside look, and we hope that our hope is to bring an inside look to to everybody in their living room or wherever they're watching it from, that they can kind of visualize and experience what we experience here.
Yeah, and what's really nice about everything we're talking about as far as the venue and how professional it is and how everything's presented, what I've noticed a lot in just the stuff that I've done as far as media stuff. Obviously, I'm a coon hunter. You're a coon hunter. We think like coon hunters. We talk to coon hunters. So we know what we're talking about and kind of what we want to see and stuff, but we don't realize a lot of times that other normal people can get on YouTube and see stuff too. So if we present it in a professional way, in an entertaining way, there could be a person that has absolutely no knowledge whatsoever about coon hunting, but maybe they like dogs. And they see, what's that? They come across that and look. And then who's to say that person isn't a landowner that maybe otherwise would have had a problem with you going on their
100%.
Property, or maybe it's a kid. I know how you're talking about the Bloodline magazines. I was the same way growing up. Dad would get those magazines. I would look at it. Magazines are still around and they're great, but they're not like what they used to be. Now everything is on your phone.
Yep.
So now you can present that information to where kids can see it and get it on Facebook or YouTube or anything. So the fact that we're showing, like you said, anyone can win a hunt like this. I can't imagine being a kid and being remotely interested in competition coon hunting and seeing a production like this and not wanting to be a part of it.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's great for people now, but I think in the long term it's going to be even better for like just young kids coming up too, because they actually get to see it. Because before, you could hear about it and read about it and see pictures, which is great if you had access to those magazines or knew someone. Now you don't even need that. You need a phone, which everyone nowadays, even 2- and 3-year-olds sometimes have phones. So I mean, it's a good opportunity for us to share what we do and reach new people. So it's exciting.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for taking the time tonight to sit down and talk.
Well, it's always a pleasure, Clayton. I know you're doing a lot for the sport, and we appreciate that as well. I know you go up and above and beyond and do a lot of coverage, not just at the TOC event, but just coon hunting in general. And you're certainly getting the word out there, and it definitely was an honor to be able to get on your podcast and share.
All right, well, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet.
He ended up treeing 7/10 of a mile. Had my light on coming in, and he had another coon, so turned him loose 3 times. He had 3 coons.